Today, we get to talk with a game changing coach who's up as a finalist for the Dave Campbell Texas Football and Ballogy Game Changing Coach Award. And we're going to talk all about what makes him a leader of men, building leaders for tomorrow, and a game changer. All that and more today on the Ballogy Elevate Your Game podcast. And welcome back to the Ballogy Elevate Your Game podcast. Your host, Sean Jones. Today, my guest is the head coach of the Hale Center High School Owls, Coach Marc Puente. Coach, thanks for taking time with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. So congratulations, first and foremost, for being a Dave Campbell's Texas Football and Ballogy Game Changer finalist for our award.
Oh man, I appreciate it, and it's a great honor for myself and for our staff and for our kids.
Absolutely. And one thing that we don't do a lot as coaches is toot our own horns. But today, Coach, we're going to do a little bit of that because your community and fans around need to understand and hear some of the great things that you do for young men in your community.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start right here. Again, as a game changer finalist, obviously it's a foregone conclusion that you do great work in building leaders in the young men at your school and in your community. And so what role do you see it playing in developing young men as leaders in life?
I think football is probably one of the best things to develop leaders and good citizens in life. Football, it's a tough sport. You go through ups and downs, you go through trials, you go through adversity, and then, at times you do have your successes. I think that translates to life. We all wish and hope that life is always nice and good for us, but in reality, we do battle the same things that we do in football. You go through the ups and you go through the downs and that adversity. And, I think football is important in building that character because, you got to find a way. And, in football also, it's fun, but it's also hard. And so you build that dedication, you build that leadership, you build really, really good characteristics, to be which is a model of a good citizen.
Man, you hit on something right there that I love. It was a motto one year for me with a team, was called find a way. Sometimes you have to find a way through problems, man. And I love that.
Yes, sir. We talk about that every day. We use Galatians 6:9 as kind of our mantra. We cut it down a little bit. So we do right, act right, love one another, and you'll bear the fruits, and then this is my third year going, and from year 1 to year 2, it's exactly what it was. We had to change kind of how we thought of things and how we acted and how we lived. And, last year our kids bear the fruits. And so, it's a big thing for us to be able to not only just win football games, but to grow as young men.
Oh, absolutely. And to that point, growing leaders, but man, you're growing a program. Stellar year last year. I know you're looking to build on that, and just an exciting time. So how do you define leadership, Coach, for a player? Like, how do you tell him this is what we're going to make you into?
Yeah, we're actually working at that right now. We had a big senior group last year. We're losing 12 seniors in a 2A Division II, so that's basically half our team. And what we've been talking about is, leadership is all the time. Being a servant leader, not only on the field, but in the classroom and in the community. And, it takes a lot. It's not always fun to be a leader because the expectations are high. And it takes a special kid to become that leader. And, like we tell our team, we don't name you a leader. You kind of walk into that by doing and acting as you should.
Yeah, that's a great point. Leadership is action. It's not a position. You know that very well as a coach in AD. So accountability, how do you teach accountability in a way that sticks with kids for their life?
Yeah, we do a lot of things. One thing that we actually had what we call battle buddies. We started that last year to where, you got a partner, and for everything that we do, grades, attendance, things like that, you're tied to a buddy. And so, those are just some things that we try to build, accountability, within our program, boys, girls. We work on that with our girls also. It's, things that we can control. But at the end of the day, accountability is what it is. We've got to be there for each other. Everybody has to do their job at all times, and that's why I think football is a really good process and work to for our kids, for their future. Because one person messes up, it messes up everything that we're doing. And so, accountability is huge in what we try to do. But again, there's some things we try to instill, but accountability just on its own is, we depend on you, the school depends on you, your teammates depend on you, just as in life, as you grow, your kids are going to depend on you, your wife's going to depend on you, and, your spouse can depend on you. And so, it's a lifelong lesson that our kids we're trying to teach our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So we joke about this a lot as coaches about what our kids might say about us if we ask them in the locker room, tell me about Coach Puente. But let's project, say, 5 or 10 years. What do you hope your players say about Coach Puente 5, 10 years down the road?
I just hope that they say that we made an impact. That I made an impact. I got into this business because people and coaches of mine, Coach Roll was one of my biggest ones. Coach Kennedy, who passed away a couple years ago, Coach Chandler, those guys had a big influence on me to get into this profession. And that's one thing that I hope that, whatever our kids do, that they project back that, not only myself, but our entire coaching staff, we had something, part in where they're at now.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we're promoting you. We're celebrating you as a Game Changer Award finalist. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we also want to, promote your community. And I want you to have the opportunity to tell us and our listeners the great things about your school and community.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Health Center. And so this is home for me. This was a dream job, and it still is a dream job for me. And not only myself, but I've got a couple guys that are, alumni on my staff and, locals. And, Health Centers, it's awesome. I grew up and thinking that this was the best place in the world. And, I have my own son here. And so, Health Centers, we're up and coming. I think, community is great. They deserve the success that that's coming. School, just talking about not even just athletics, but we're almost, we're 89.33, almost an A campus. Great things are here, and that's a credit to our staff, our administration, our parents. Parents have been great. It's pretty fun. I've coached a lot of these parents, and so it's a second generation for me to coach. And it's fun to be able to communicate and talk about memories and things that myself and their dads did. And it's really a big family, and I think that's where success happens, is when you build that community and you build that family. Then you're going to have that type of success.
Yeah, that's great. So if with this Game Changer Award, obviously we are recognizing coaches who are making a big difference in young men's lives, building leaders for the future and doing things right. So what's one piece of advice that you might offer to other coaches, maybe your assistant coaches or other young coaches, about becoming a game-changing coach?
Yeah, it's overwhelming to hear that. It's good to be able to be recognized for that. And for me, my advice is, one, hire great people. And that's kind of been an emphasis for for me and our school is to hire really good people, because in turn they're going to build those relationships, and it's going to be really good. It's for our kids, for a coach. If I have something, piece of advice is be yourself. There's many ways to be successful. There's many ways to be a great coach, great mentor. But I think the biggest thing is you've got to find your way. I'm not the loudest person, I'm not anything like that. But, I feel like one of the things that we can do is build relationships. And so the biggest thing is, be yourself and be true to yourself. And, we kind of use biblical things to be able to reach our kids, and that works for us. And so I think anytime we can reach our kids into that realm, I think it's going to be better for our school now, but also benefit them in the future.
Yeah, man, I love hearing that. One thing a lot of coaches don't like to talk about is success or future successes. But aside from wins and losses, what could you define success as for your program?
Yeah, success for me, besides winning losses, is seeing our kids succeed. When you've got kids going to college, that's a big thing for us in our community. It doesn't always happen, but the rate at which our kids are going, that's success. But the biggest thing is when you got a kid who gives you a call and says, "Coach, I'm doing this because of you," or I'm doing this because of athletics. I think that's a success. When you see your kids succeed, I think that's a win in our book.
Yeah, and I can hear that in you just listening as you talk about your community. You mentioned even the girls' side. So I know that they have a leader who cares about them winning on the court, on the field, and in the classroom or the community. So your community has a great leader in you, Coach, and it's exciting to hear you talk about them in those ways.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, we've got a lot of good things going, not only on the boys' side, but the girls' side. Great staff, great community, and great administration for sure.
Very nice. So at Ballogy, our passion is skill development, player development, which helps teams win. We know that that's your passion, is skill development, player development to help your team win. And that's one of the reasons that we've partnered with Dave Campbell's Texas Football. To do this award is to recognize people like yourself who are concerned with the little things, the way things are done, to do them right, and to build men and women of integrity and leadership. And we just want to really congratulate you again as a finalist. We're going to be celebrating that with you in the season. I know you'll be sent recognition of that and an award. And then voting will start for the bigger grand prize award. And so I want to get your community fired up and voting for Coach Puente and the Owls, man.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that greatly.
Yeah. So fans can be looking for that. And we wish you the greatest of success again this year. And Coach, thank you for what you do for young men and even the young women in your school, but certainly in your football team, for leading with integrity, giving them those principles like you talked about, biblical principles and ways of life that are going to make them successful far beyond the football field.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate you guys for recognizing coaches across the state.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Coach Marc Puente from the Hale Center High School Owls.
Thank you, sir.